Welcome back to the Rural Roundup, brought to you in association with the Scottish Government. The sun is shining. We are starting to think it's summer. The fields are a myriad of greens and bright yellows. Cattle are out in the field grazing. The young lambs are out gambling up and down in the fields. Today also sees the return of Tiffany Stephenson. Welcome back, Tiffany.
Hi there, it's lovely to be back, although I'm going to put a bit of offence of you saying that the sun is shining and it's warming up. It is freezing still outside in my books.
Is it? Oh, it's definitely improvement from what it's been. There's no doubt about that. Tiffany took a wee break last summer, and let's just say that the Stephenson household, where there was 2, there is now 3. Everyone well, Tiffany?
Everyone's very well. Definitely getting a little bit less sleep than I used to have, but an absolute delight to have a little one around, and definitely keeps me very busy, out of too much mischief, and definitely makes every day brighter.
Yeah. And it feels strange. You've gone from the frying pan that's been a new mom into the fire that's IACS, AECS and podcasts.
Well, what better way to get introduced back to work than to just jump straight back into it all? And I think actually it's been great getting back in, having a chat to people, getting to see lots of farmers. A lot of them are in very good spirits. So it's really nice to be back.
Yeah, back to doing IACS, meeting farmers again. It's maybe better than watching Peppa Pig and such like.
I have not yet watched an episode of Peppa Pig, and I'm planning to keep it that way.
It's to come. Don't worry, it'll come. Anyway, by the time this goes out, the IACS deadline will have passed, but there is still the opportunity to make 1 or 2 wee amendments.
So you do have until the 31st of May to make any amendments or additions to your form, and that is with no penalty. If you don't quite make the 31st of May, you do have until the 9th of June, which is the very final deadline, but you will be starting to incur penalties. So if I were you, the best thing to do is make sure you get your form completed before the 15th of May, and if there is any changes to be made, get them done as soon as possible.
It's also fair to say, and this year saw the introduction of enhanced greening. One thing that we're picking up, and you've missed a lot of the fun involved with enhanced greening, Tiffany. A lot of people are now, they've got their crops in the ground. They're now going and sowing various mixes. And what we're coming across is that one person's interpretation of fallow might not be the same as the next person. There are various mixes out there that are branded as fallow. They might tick the box for fallow, but it might be meaning greening in general. So it might actually be a herbal lay or something else. So what we're saying to people is, please pay attention to what's on those labels. Make sure they're compliant with whatever option you've chosen. There's enough flowering plants, enough legumes, right types of grasses, etc., etc.
It's definitely worth double checking those seed labels, because I think a lot of people have been caught out thinking they sowed something suitable, and they've actually come in to see us for their appointment to go through their greening and their SAF form and realise that actually there's not quite enough species in there. So definitely do double check. Go and ask your advisor if needed as well, just to make sure you're right. It's something that's too important to mess up on. And also make sure you keep that seed label. So if you were to have an inspection at a later point this year, you've actually got seed labels to say this is what went in the ground.
And to be fair to the seed companies, they're all most of them are pretty aware of what the different options are. If you're managing some land under a fallow option, make sure you ask for that option. You don't just generally just ask for fallow. It's to meet your fallow. If it's herbal lay, ask for a proper herbal lay mix. If it's a fallow diverse grassland mix, make sure it's that. If it's a wildflower mix, make sure it ticks the box for that. Most of the seed companies will be aware of, the right mix for the job. So yeah, just make sure you keep your eye on the detail, basically.
It's definitely worth keeping your eye on the detail. It's noticeable that there's some mixes seem to tick the boxes for quite a lot of different options, but they don't quite fully meet all of the options. So they might look good, but go and compare it to the EFA guidance and just double check all the species that are there, because it's very easy to get caught out because some do look very, very good, but there's not quite the right mix.
Yeah, and something else to bear in mind is we are seeing some people who are, and they're aiming to establish a herbal ley, but the seed mix is suitably diverse that it's ticking the box for fallow this year, and to allow the ages to allow it to be retained as a EFA option for an extra year. They're claiming it as fallow. That'll only work if they can use it as a herbal ley option next year, provided those mixes, those species actually become established. So I kind of goes down to keeping your seed label, but you need to make sure that these, what you plant actually comes away and you do get the necessary diversity.
I know there has been a bit of complication with people making sure they get the right seed labels and right seed mixes when they're establishing them. But overall, I think some of these new EFA options have been a real hit this year. And I think a lot of farmers have quite enjoyed maybe putting in something different if they've previously had greening, because it's fitting what they're doing anyway. And some of the people who are new to EFA for this year for the first time, they've actually found a couple or few options that actually really go and benefit their business.
Yeah, that's right. And we've found that as well. I mean, we had a meeting a number of months ago, and one farmer came over after the meeting, highly delighted by the fact that he has been sowing grass leys for a number of years that have had some clovers and also had plantain. And all of a sudden, he's growing something that is suitable for the herbal ley leguminous pasture mix. Fine, he's sorted. So he was highly delighted by that. So, and the green cover, the increased flexibility with green cover this year, that's ticking boxes for a lot of people too. So there is increased flexibility, and people are adapting to it.
They're definitely adapting to it, and they're already thinking about what they're doing next year and in future years as well, which I think is a great way to approach it, because if you're thinking ahead, you're able to go and establish what's needed in plenty of time instead of rushing around last minute.
I think so. I think that's the attraction with the herbal leys are that they can go up to 1.5 for next year. So, so that's it's people are aware, and a lot of people are getting ready for 2027.
I have had a few people asking about the Future Farm investment scheme when they've been in. They were asking about if it's going to be back this year. But I think more importantly is the people that did get in last year are needing to think about making sure they provide the required evidence for the funding that they got for their investment as well. What requirements are there, George?
Firstly, make sure that you get the item home and you get the item in situ, basically. There are one or two supply issues. I'm aware of that, but people need to realise that the clock is ticking for getting stuff home, getting stuff paid. So basically, the evidence requirements are taking geotag photographs of the items in situ, also invoices, bank statements, or proof of payment. And there's also a number of when you're filling out the evidence form, there's a bit of thinking to be done there as well. It's not a 5-minute job. It's not something to leave to the last minute. Certainly, if there's maybe a bit of building work to be done with some of these items, whether it's cattle handling areas or what have you, you need to get things in place as soon as possible. And start gathering up that evidence.
Well, I think it's worth putting the time to get that evidence all sorted out in plenty of time, because people could have got up to £20,000. That's not a small sum. So it's definitely worthwhile to put the time and effort in and just make sure it's done properly and correctly, because you don't want to have to be giving the money back.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And as I said, the clock is starting to tick now. So it is a question now, making sure you've got the right stuff home, making sure it's paid, get your ducks in a row, basically.
Am I right in thinking that it was 9 months from when they got their offer?
I think you're correct there, Tiffany. Yeah.
Yeah, so very important to check when you got that offer and make sure you get everything done and in place and ready to go.
And we've gone out of the IACS window, and we're now into the AECS window. AECS deadline for most applications, so your environmental options and such like, it's the 22nd of June, and that's the same for irrigation lagoons. Organics, a bit different, I think, Tiffany?
Yeah, organics, you've got a little bit longer and you've got until 31st of July. It's definitely jumping out of one deadline straight into the next. It keeps us very busy and farmers very busy as well if they're planning on putting in an application. But if you're putting in an agri-environment application, make sure you get your farm walked sooner rather than later, and make sure you know what options you're wanting to go for, because 22nd of June, it sounds a long time away, but it's going to come around very quickly.
Yeah, that's right. It's amazing how quickly time disappears. But no, yeah, if you are thinking about doing it, whether it's you, whether it's an advisor, what have you, take a time to plan it out beforehand. Don't leave it to the last minute, and because there is it's not a short application process. It does take a minute to gather up the necessary documents and such like, and mapping requirements. So planning ahead again, it's the best call.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast the time will fly because people will be starting thinking about silage, and amazing how many other events will start cropping up that people will want to go to as well. Because I know on the 10th of June, I'm going to Scott Sheep, and hopefully many of you will be going to Scott Sheep as well. It's at Wedderley, West Brother in the Scottish borders, which I think will be a fantastic day out. So I'm sure many people will be there. And I think beyond that, there's then thinking about different crop events and grassland events and shows.
Yeah, of course, the big one for a lot of people will be the Royal Highland Show in June, and it is a little more than a month away as we're talking. And I suppose that's a focal point, social event for a lot of people. There's also a bit of business done, and it is a showcase for Scottish agriculture.
I think it'll definitely be a fantastic week, and hopefully the weather will stay good when it comes around.
Tiffany, while you've been away, you will be noticing that costs of production have changed significantly, certainly in the last couple of months. Fuel prices are, through the roof. Fertilizer prices are, they're really significantly higher than they were a few months ago, and as well, there's supply issues as well, of course. That can sometimes be the trigger for people to have a look at things. Look at their systems. Dye is probably cast for this harvest, obviously, but it's maybe the opportunity to look at changing rotations, different systems. There is help in the form of one-to-one support from the Farm Advisory Service.
I have noticed very big changes in prices while I've been away. It's definitely eye-opening, and hopefully farmers have actually taken the time to stop and think about these changes. And you've mentioned the one-to-one support. I think that's a fantastic way to have a good look at some of these things and how they're affecting your business. It could be identifying what the strengths and weaknesses of your business are, if there's any opportunity you're missing, or just changing what your plans are. So a way to start looking at that is the integrated land management plans, which are available, and they can have up to 80% funding. So I think it is a great way to start looking overall at your business, how it's performing, and if having somebody out with the business, having a look at it, can often notice things that you not necessarily notice on the ground in a day-to-day running off it because you're so busy trying just to run the business. So having somebody looking at the business might help you identify where changes could be made to help for the future.
Yeah, and there are, as you said, the other integrated land management plan is kind of like the starting point. It looks at the whole farm, really, covers a bit in the whole assets, and that can be also natural capital and such like. But then there's just a whole range of specialist plans that can be done, basically feeding on from what you find in the integrated land management plan. Whether it's biodiversity, whether it's carbon, or it can be business efficiency, business resilience, or even inheritance. It can be looking at a number of different options, getting some support, or allowing an advisor to come in and help, maybe come up with a plan going forward, look at different options. It is a challenging set of circumstances that we find ourselves in at the moment. There's no doubt about that. And sometimes taking the time to look at different options, making changes or not making changes, because things are maybe fine the way they are. It's always worth doing.
It's definitely worth doing. I think it's worth being aware that you are able to get the funding for 2 specialist plans, and you can, or you don't need to, do the integrated land management plan as well. So it's entirely up to you what would suit what you're wanting to look at the best. There's such a broad range of options. I think if you've got something in the back of your head thinking, I want to look more deeply at that, go and have a look, because there's probably one that will fit what you're wanting to look at.
Definitely. It's an opportunity maybe to get that a different set of eyes, maybe looking at the business and coming up with that different idea, maybe that maybe just moves the business on a wee bit. Or gets you doing something differently, or looking at something differently yourself. Sometimes just that can be enough. Just getting you looking at things differently. That's a huge start.
Or it could just be giving you the confidence of what you're wanting to change is a good idea to go ahead and change.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not long back to work, and already with IACS, FFIS, greening, there's been a lot on my mind already, but at the back of my mind is still need to find time for a summer holiday. Not yet figured out where I'm wanting to go or what we're going to be doing with it. But it's definitely something at this time of year you start wondering how you can go and enjoy the summer. I have noticed there's a few options for agri-tourism, which I think maybe we could try that this year instead of going somewhere abroad, just to make it a little bit easier with a young one. What about you, George?
I think you're probably now going to be the same boat as what we are. We tend to go local when we and we tend not to go away very much, to be quite honest with you, but we go and support I suppose local businesses by farm shops and visitor attractions and such like. Maybe this year there will be a greater interest because fuel prices, because there are people wondering how this is going to affect airline prices and such like. So there is scope, there is plenty out there to go and see and do locally. And the other side of it is good sometimes to get away from the farm, or put the laptop down, or get away from work just for a while, get away with the loved ones, and just do something different. And thinking about getting away and having some holidays, Kerry Hammond is going to be discussing opportunities in Scottish agri-tourism with Linda McAllister, who's a Senior Tourism Sector Development Manager from Visit Scotland.
Hi, I'm Kerry Hammond from the Farm Advisory Service, and I'm joined by Linda McAllister, who's joined us on the Rural Roundup today to talk about agri-tourism. Hi, Linda.
Hi there, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. I am, at the time of recording, sitting in an unprecedented hailstorm. How are things with you?
West Lothian is sunny but intermittently rainy as well. So yeah, it's typical May weather.
Not quite taps off just yet.
Not quite.
Linda, tell me a little bit more about you.
I have been at Visit Scotland now for 25 years, just celebrated my 25th anniversary, and I have had a very long, very varied career within the organisation. I started as a marketing assistant in our international marketing team. And from there went on to take responsibility for a huge range of activities and markets, including looking after our travel agent education programme, our Scots agent. I looked after our relationships, particularly with the North American tour operators, travel agents, airlines. I worked on our North American marketing campaigns to consumers, brought in partners to work on those campaigns too, and then latterly moved into a role that was looking at business support and business development, which included looking after our business relationship managers, our quality assurance program, and then more recently I've moved into a sector development role. And essentially what that is looking at tourism sectors and identifying what do they need to grow, what is their growth opportunity, what is their growth ambition, how can we support that, and how can we work with partners to ensure that support.
So tell us about the sector or sectors that you are working with.
So we work across a number of sectors, including accommodation, and accommodation will be self-catering, B&Bs, hostels and hotels, caravans, campsites. We also look at the active and outdoor sector, which is hugely varied. Everything from wildlife experiences, sailing, and adventure activities. We look after the visit attraction sector, so that's everything from your traditional heritage attractions right the way through to or modern attractions and tours and so forth. And we also work really closely with food and drink. So in some ways that is looking at the food and drink producers, but agritourism as a sector sits very clearly within that, since the definition of agritourism is an experience on a working farm or croft or estate that produces food or fibre. So that fits in really, really well with our broader kind of food and drink focus.
It's an area of personal interest for me. When I was growing up, when I was tiny and wee, my dad was a tourism and heritage manager in the Highlands. So I honestly grew up believing like Scotland was like the world's biggest theme park. I just thought the whole country ran on tourism. And I feel really lucky to, not only have the family businesses associated, but to get to speak to and work with some really incredible land-based tourism operators and agri-tourism operators across Scotland. And I have to say, I'm very jealous of your role being so baked in and embedded in it.
Yeah, we're very lucky. I mean, it wasn't something that I really appreciated growing up until you're older and you look back on it. I was very lucky. I grew up in North Lanarkshire near Motherwell, which, it's an post-industrial area. But my parents were very much into, taking us down to, we were right in the doorstep of the Clyde Valley. So every summer we went fruit picking down the Clyde Valley in these fantastic locations, local produce, but I didn't appreciate it at the time that that's what it was. So getting to do that with my kids now is brilliant, because it's part of that kind of legacy of enjoying our heritage and our culture that my parents instilled in me, and now my children can really enjoy it too. And the opportunities to do that now, there's so many of them compared to when you were younger, where there was like specific hotspots. Whereas agritourism as a sector is countrywide. We're seeing so many farms now diversifying into this area, and bringing visitors onto their land now, and it's a great opportunity to pass that culture and heritage on to the next generation.
Thanks so much for sharing that experience. And it must be nice not only to, enjoy it, reminisce about enjoying it, share it with the next generation, but actually understand some of the inner workings and the importance of that to the economy. You're kind of seeing it from both sides, really, Linda.
Yes, and I'm a terrible bore when I take my children out, when I travel around the country with my husband and family. I'm always like, but did you know that they started out from this point and now they have grown to that point? So it's an immense source of pride for me, but having worked in the industry for so long, to be able to see the growth of businesses, to be able to see the growth of destinations, and see that how more and more visitors are coming to experience it, and more and more visitors are taking part and having taking that experience with them overseas. So yeah, I've been very, very lucky to love what I do for so long.
So you spoke there about the growth of visitors and the growth of destinations, and we're lucky enough to have you on the podcast today to talk to us about growth overall in the sector.
Yes, we're very lucky that we've been able to work really closely with both Scottish Government and Scottish Agri-Tourism, who are the association, the industry association for the sector, to identify both what was the baseline for the sector and what growth looks like now that we're midway through the ambition for a 2030 growth strategy. So it started off in 2021-22, and we identified a number of farms that were working in agritourism. And then in 2025, we were able to go back out and survey those farms and identify whether they had seen an increase in visitors, an increase in turnover, and an increase in employment. And what that 2025 survey has identified, that there actually has been quite significant increases across all three, despite really challenging operating conditions. What we've seen is the agritourism sector growing to a value of about almost £300 million to the economy, and employing around 8,000 FTE. Now, those are really, really significant numbers, considering not only that the majority of agritourism businesses actually started up after the pandemic, after 2020. So the growth is not only in the footfall and the number of visitors visiting farms, but the number of farms that have actually diversified into tourism, and have really embraced that opportunity. So we're seeing that across a whole range of different visitor experiences. We're seeing accommodation, and that could be anything from farmhouse B&B to a glamping pod to staying in a converted barn. And we're seeing it in farm retail. We're seeing it in farm experiences. So it could be tours. It could be, the seasonal events in particular are very, very popular. We've seen a lot of farms who've diversified into Halloween events, into spring events, which is great because it really helps to push out the season. And it means that they're seeing an audience that is both local, national, and international. So what they're doing is they're offering a range of experiences that are suiting a really, really wide range of visitors. And that is what is really contributing to that really interesting growth statistic that we're seeing on the farms themselves.
Those numbers that you mentioned are just phenomenal, and particularly thinking about the conditions in which that growth has occurred. I've certainly seen an absolute boom of pumpkin patch picking around me. I frankly wish it was possible to do that year round, but it is wonderful to see the shoulder seasons. It's not all just in those high seasons. That massive growth in the number of FTE, the full-time equivalent employees that you mentioned, what kind of impact is that having for Scotland?
Well, what that does is it contributes to keeping Scotland's people in the rural areas that they've grown up in, that there's jobs there now that they might not have had. There's potentially accommodation opportunities there that they might not have had previously. So it's about maximising that rural economy and making sure that jobs stay locally and continue to benefit those rural economies themselves.
That fragile rural economy, particularly, I think, hard all over Scotland, but particularly difficult in the Highlands and the Islands. Is Scottish agritourism focused in one area of Scotland? Would you say it's fairly spread? What does it look like in those kind of more far-flung areas?
I think we're very lucky that there's agriculture businesses prevalent throughout Scotland, and therefore there's agritourism businesses prevalent throughout Scotland. I would say there's probably stronger diversification in the Central East and North East, but what we see is perhaps in the north of Scotland is more a tendency towards farm accommodation rather than farm experiences, whereas in the south of Scotland there might be more farm experiences than accommodation. So it really is it's a mixed picture in terms of the offering, but what we see is across the whole of Scotland and our island communities, farm diversification. We've got great examples in Shetland who have taken opportunity to diversify to welcome cruise ship passengers, for example. So that is the type of opportunity that is really spread throughout the country.
In terms of the years that you've been tracking, has the growth been fairly consistent, or has it kind of had sharp peaks?
I think it's been fairly consistent. What we do have within the growth, though, is a couple of businesses that have grown very, very significantly. So within not only the overall picture of growth, we have individual businesses who have managed to invest very significantly in their visitor offering and have seen significant growth because of that. We've got a couple of brilliant case studies, for example, on our website that helps to identify, how you can diversify and where that growth can come from. And very often it will depend on, the infrastructure, the investment that you're placing on the site, but it will also be the markets and understanding the markets if you're looking at either a local, a national, or an international market. And that is where, when you're looking at the physical infrastructure, there's support available potentially from both Scottish Government and local authorities. And then for ourselves, for Visit Scotland, we're looking at that product distribution, and we're helping identify what is it about this product that would be particularly interesting to a North American visitor or a Chinese visitor, and how do you get that product in front of them? Because depending on which market you're interested in and what type of business you want, whether it's groups, whether it's individuals, we can identify the right route to market for that and the right partners to work with to help support that growth.
I'll link the webpage on this podcast, but it sounds like there's a wealth of information available for farms or farmers who may be either thinking about starting that diversification or maybe wondering why their venture into agritourism might have stalled.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. So it's a great opportunity for us within the sector to work with partners to support that initial diversification piece, whether that's around your business plan or looking at the infrastructure that's needed to be able to change, maybe you've got access issues and things like that. And then where we come in is looking at, okay, you've started this journey now. How can we help through our advice and insights? How can we help you shape the product? How can we help you polish it off a bit to make it even more appealing to the visitor markets? And then what markets is it right for? So and then identifying how consumers from those markets are purchasing their Scotland experiences. So we can advise on, if you're really interested in the US market, here are some online travel agents or some tour operators. You need to be thinking about the mechanics of selling through those channels. What is the cost of sale to you to sell through those channels versus direct? We can help you identify how you can maximize your online presence, whether that's working with Google or working with OTA partners, and really kind of give that kind of all-round experience of what is the best way for me to sell this product now that I've established it. So our website and our business support hub in particular has got lots of specific advice for, whether you're offering accommodation or whether you're offering a visitor experience like a tour or on a farm. Then what we do is we say, well, here's some really good insights and tips to be able to develop that experience further. And then when you get to the point where you want to go and distribute that experience, you want to sell it through to your chosen markets, here's some information and advice that helps you do that. And then we also when you get to that stage where you're really confident in the product, you're really confident about selling it, then we have platforms like Scotland Connect, which is held in April each year, which we will bring in the buyers to come and meet you to be able to sell the product directly to them. And that business to business exchange is a really, really important part of how we take that product to fruition and take it towards that, and that's how we support that ultimate growth.
I wonder if for some agricultural businesses and families, when they first kind of start out with that diversification, I wonder if it's seen as a product that needs, that kind of wrap around, the marketing and the routes to market and the strategy, and whether, not in every case, but in some cases, I wonder whether sometimes it might be, we have some infrastructure available, or we have somebody in the family who would like to try something different. And I think it's really valuable to hear not only all of the support that's available, but also actually just that slight mindset towards this is a product and it requires that sales strategy attached to it.
Yeah, and I would say that's where particularly the support of organisations like Scottish Agritourism has been absolutely invaluable, because what they are able to do is to give that kind of initial support on that journey and help them identify whether or not that it is the right pathway for them. And they have also built a fantastic community of agritourism operators who are constantly sharing best practice, sharing experience and learning from each other. And you see that at their annual conference, for example. It's a brilliant opportunity to see that community and practice and in place, celebrating each other's successes, but also learning from each other and furiously scribbling down, thinking, I could do that, I can take that away, I can learn from that. And they're, as an organisation, they're constantly evolving that support and that advice to their members. And we work very closely alongside that with our own support and advice to make sure that we are kind of squaring that circle. But, we've got an onward journey between the advice that they're given and then pointing to the advice that we give and vice versa, so that we're giving that complete support package, if you like, to businesses who are considering this.
Yeah, wrapping all the way around, start to finish. It sounds like a really supportive sector to be a part of.
It's brilliant. I'm very, very lucky, and I have never been at a conference where the food and drink has been so scrutinised, and that was a real eye opener for me. Going along to the last Scottish Agritourism conference and seeing, the farmers themselves who were at the conference bringing in the cheese for the dessert, and being so proud of being able to provide that produce for their colleagues in the industry, which was great. And that's definitely something that we're very much looking forward to in June, when the Global Agritourism Conference comes to Scotland. It's coming to Aberdeen, and that is going to be a real showcase of the North East. It's going to showcase their food and drink, showcase their farm experiences, not only for the North East but for wider Scotland. And we're going to be able to learn from scholars and from academics and farmers all over the world about their experience of agritourism, and what more we can do to support growth in the sector.
So, Linda, you have painted a fantastic picture in a very short amount of time of the growth and opportunities in the agritourism sector for Scotland. What does the sector look like in the future?
That's a great question, and definitely something that as a strategy implementation board we're going to be spending a bit of time looking at after the conference. So where we've had the opportunity to compare our performance to some of the other destinations that have a strong agritourism product and get to understand, how they've got to achieve the growth that they have. One of the things we'll be looking at, for example, is the number of farms that are involved in agritourism. At the moment, we have a target of about 1,000, but is that the right target? Should that be stretching? Should we be encouraging even more of Scotland's 16,000 VAT-registered farms to consider diversifying into agritourism? Because that would secure indeed that additional footfall. The more product that we have, the more footfall, the more turnover, the more growth for the sector. But we'll be looking at a range of different projections across not only the inbound visitor markets, the number of farms that are involved in agritourism, what additional support that we can see to secure for the sector, and that will help us come up with an overall growth plan that will stretch those 2030 targets even further than they have been.
Linda, thank you so much. This has been such an interesting conversation. Thank you for all of the insight that you gave.
You're very welcome. It's been a delight.
Thanks, Kerry. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Rural Roundup. We'll see you back here on the 17th of June with our next episode. This episode was hosted by George Chalmers and Tiffany Stephenson, featured our guest Linda McAllister, and was produced by George Gawley and edited by Cameron Waugh.
The Farm Advisory Service Podcast. Audio advice on livestock, crops and soils, environment, rural business and more. Brought to you in association with the Scottish Government.